It has finally happened. Kevin Durant has been traded. Holy shit. Game 7 of the NBA Finals is later today. We had to drop an emergency reaction to this because we just found out the news. According to Shams Charania, the Houston Rockets have landed Kevin Durant from the Phoenix Suns, Jalen Green, Dillon Brooks, the 10th pick in the draft, and 5 second-round picks headed to the Phoenix Suns.
Wow.
A lot to react to, and what does this mean for other teams? Because Shams also reported the finalists were the Houston Rockets and the Miami Heat. Does Miami pivot now? There's been a lot of smoke and rumors surrounding the Kings and Miami Heat talking about potential DeMar DeRozan deal. Holy shit, a lot to go over. But first things first, Morgan, your reaction. Kevin Durant moved yet again onto his 5th team in his NBA career. He's headed to the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, it doesn't. I know, like what is it? The reaction around any player, especially of his caliber, moving from team to team to team, like, well, he's always the problem. Well, he's not the one win. It's like, well, he's won before. One. Also, toward the end of his career, usually I'm worried when you give up so many things for a player that is at the end of their career, but not with Kevin Durant, not with what he did last year. He played, 62 games last season, 70 something before that. So like, this guy is feeling better than ever, but better than ever in so many different categories as well. Shooting over 40% from 3 last year, over 50% from the field, averaging almost 27 points per game. So this guy is still at the high of high. And I remember saying, okay, if he's going to get traded somewhere, I really hope that it's in the East. It's not Miami. It's not in the East. He remains in the West, and he goes to a team that needs that go-to guy.
Mm-hmm. We saw that a lot in the playoffs. You're like, who's going to go get a bucket here? This guy can get it. This is a swing and a home run for the Houston Rockets. In terms of what they had to give up, they did not have to give up Jabari Smith.
Yeah.
They did not have to give up someone we didn't really see last year to Reed Shepherd. They didn't have to give up a ton of first-round picks, which obviously makes sense. Kevin Durant entering the final year of his deal. Houston probably has to figure out an extension thing. But when you start looking at the landscape of the NBA, like, windows are not open for long. And this Houston team is super intriguing with some of the talent that they have on the roster.
Absolutely.
And to add Kevin Durant to this mix is, like, I think almost a perfect fit because you have athleticism around him. You got a big in Şengün who is an all-star level big in this league who I think showed signs of the playoffs like, oh shit, like this guy has a real promising future.
Yeah.
I think this is an awesome move for them. And in terms of like giving up Jalen Green, I hesitate to overreact to what we saw in the playoffs because he's still only 23 years old.
Young.
But like, there's no one stock, I think, in the NBA who took a greater hit in the playoffs than his.
Yeah.
As a young player.
Oh, yeah.
And his contract kicks in next year, 33, 36, and a player option for $36 million. You have to part with something. And I think that's one where you're like, okay, it's not like this is like totally perfect for the Houston Rockets, but you have to sacrifice something. And Dillon Brooks, obviously there's a hard-nosed, like,
he's
grit
a dog.
that he brings dog, but like they've got plenty of dogs on the team. I think this is a no-brainer for the Houston Rockets.
I'm completely with you on that. And I just love it as an NBA fan, seeing, these pieces move, especially in the offseason, the morning of the Game 7 of the NBA Finals. It's like all of it just coming together so perfectly. What?
Morgan, if David Stern was alive and the commissioner,
what would he do?
well, first of all, this trade would not be leaked out on Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And if it was, he'd probably put out a hit on Raphael Stone and Brian Gregory, the GMs of the Houston Rockets and the Phoenix Suns. Like, no way this gets leaked on Game 7 of the NBA Finals to take away from what today should be about, which is a champion is going to be crowned between the Pacers and the Thunder. Yet Kevin Durant gets moved. And it's like, we couldn't leak this out like Tuesday, like before the draft. It had to come today. I personally don't love it, but I also love talking about the movement. Yeah,
I love jamming in a whole bunch of basketball shit on one day. I think it's great. But I understand also from clicks and a content standpoint of view, it's like, oh yeah, can we spread it out a little bit? No. I love this. I'm so glad. We'll always remember it too. It was the morning of Game 7 of the NBA. What a weird day that was.
What was wild is there was a video that someone put out from the Fanatics Fest that's happening in New York, and Taylor Rooks was doing a panel with Kevin Durant when the trade happened, and she was talking about it with him live on stage.
You're headed to Houston. How does that sound?
We're gonna see, man. We're gonna see what happens, man. We're gonna see.
We'll see what happens, but I am excited. Great young core, great coach. I think we could be a great fit there. A lot going on right now.
I feel like everyone's gonna be dissecting that smile he had in the comments of we'll see, man, we'll see. Is he happy? I don't know. There were so many rumors out there like he wanted to go to the Spurs. I think ultimately the Spurs were like, we're not going to overpay.
Yeah.
And we're in a good spot as a team. Let's just move forward with what we have, or maybe take a swing at something else down the road. I didn't think the Spurs needed to go all in now to do this, where I think Houston, you can make a case. Like, they're the number 2 seed last year.
Yeah.
You add Durant to this mix.
Small
I think
window.
it gives them legit chance.
We always talk about that small window for these teams, and it's like the window closes. And so how do you capitalize on your moment now? And this is Houston's way of capitalizing on that. And I think, so many too are going to dissect, like you said, what was given up for Kevin Durant. But that's just where we are in the NBA. It's not apples for apples everywhere. Different markets have to give up a shit ton more, or like their firstborn baby, or the keys to the arena, or whatever else. But at the same time, I think ultimately, just like you said, Houston didn't have to give up other pieces that would totally break this core of good basketball players that are within this organization right now to get Kevin Durant. I feel like they added, and it's good for them. And then if you go to Phoenix too, and there's still their issues there.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. and I mean, partly with Phoenix, look, you're in a tough spot, and we've seen this, right? Happen so many times in the league, but like, all right, you've got a guy on an expiring contract who's like 36, 37 years old. And he's trying to, get to a certain spot. It could put you in a difficult position, and you're only going to get so much for him. We don't know what the other offers were.
No.
So it's hard to judge. We can only judge this offer that we have seen that was executed. On paper, you go, wait, Jalen Green, Devin Booker? What? And then the Dillon Brooks, Devin Booker dynamic where they've feuded over the years. Like, what's that all look like? I don't know. Maybe Phoenix is just like, hey, we just needed... maybe Jalen Green can be an asset that we can move down the road. And we needed a pick in this draft, and we got some second-round picks. So we did the best we could based on the circumstances. Their team right now doesn't make sense. I think there's going to be a lot of questions like, how is Devin Booker feeling today?
Yeah.
Is he thinking about maybe he wants to play elsewhere? I think there are probably more questions than answers at this point for the Phoenix Suns.
Their team hasn't made sense for a little bit now.
Right.
Like, it just hasn't. And I think having more and more assets, obviously, I know more and more assets gives you more and more options, more and more things to work with. And I'm sure Suns fans are feeling like, well, they don't know what the shit to do with these, these assets, these picks, and whatever else anyway. Well, you can only hope that down the line that they will and that they do, because I also feel like if you looked around what you could get for Kevin Durant, you could still get a lot, but it's like you said, he was going into the final year of his contract as well. And so some teams have to realize where they are as an organization, and whatever team just wants to take that extra punch, that extra mile for that next season specifically. I think Houston is the perfect team for that.
Yeah. And Durant, you're wondering when he's going to take like a dramatic hit down. Like we're starting to see a territory in the NBA that we really haven't seen in the past, where you have these like old men like LeBron and KD who are performing at levels that are just absurd.
Yeah.
I think Durant's taken a hit defensively a
Sure.
bit. but I think you have enough surrounding him that it'll be fine. And
On this Houston roster,
Yeah,
absolutely you do. And you lose a little bit of that, obviously, in someone like Dillon Brooks and the perimeter
Right.
pressure that he puts on, but you still have that same intensity from Ime Udoka in the rest of this team, where I don't think they're going to lose that identity going forward just because they take a little bit of a hit with Kevin Durant on their team on the defensive end.
so, the question will be, do they have enough to get past Oklahoma City?
Yeah.
You got to take a swing. So I love this move for the Houston Rockets. I can't wait to see what the Suns do next, just how they pivot from here. How this impacts the other teams. Like Minnesota was trying to get Durant, swung and missed. San Antonio was in the mix. There are, I guess, some other teams. Miami is a big one that people are talking about now because people are wondering, all right, what's their next step? Even for them, trying to execute a KD trade, you're like, what was their thought process? Was it, hey, we get Durant with Hero and Bam in the East. The East is wide open next year. Maybe we have a chance.
Okay.
I don't look at that team and go, hey, Durant's a missing piece that could propel them to the NBA Finals.
Sure.
But now, where do they go? There's been a lot of talk about DeMar DeRozan and the Kings talking to Miami about sending DeRozan to Miami. I even look at that and go, okay, what's that mean for Miami?
Right. What does that do for them, especially for now that obviously we've seen enough of DeMar DeRozan with a Kings team that isn't a very good defensive team? He not necessarily is a liability on that end, but as you see him get older and older, you just understand what he can do on that end of the floor. Sure, he has that high IQ and that effort pops through at times when he gets his hands up, gets a deflection, but at the same time, it ultimately feels like it breaks down so many times on that end of the floor. When he can get a bucket, he's a bucket getter.
He's a bucket.
Like, that is what he is. So having that on the offensive end, always great to have. Is it something that works in your system? How do you want to move the basketball? What do you want your offense to look like? Do you want it to go through him, ISO, boom, do something else? Do you want to work with him and try and create this different identity for him as an offensive player at this point of his career? That's what I just don't understand with that connection.
And I think Miami they're always just trying to compete.
Yeah.
They're not about like, hey, let's strip it down and tank. They're like, no, like we just need to be competitive. This is what we're about. And we're going to keep tinkering. And if DeMar DeRozan, adding him to our team helps make us better, then we're going to do it. The question, I guess, goes to like, what would they give up in a DeMar DeRozan trade? Jake Fisher from Bleacher Report had been reporting that the Kings are pretty confident that they're going to break into the 20s in the first round of the draft. Obviously, they don't have a first round pick.
No, they don't.
Well, Miami has the 20th pick in the draft.
Hey.
So you have to imagine that would be involved. But what else? Like, is it Duncan Robinson's deal? And is it Jaime Jaquez? I know some people have said, hey, what about Andrew Wiggins? If I'm Miami, I'm not giving up Andrew Wiggins in a DeMar DeRozan deal. I want Wiggins on the team with DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Obviously.
Like if we're going to compete, like that, we need Wiggins.
I don't
on the
think
squad.
they would have to give up Andrew Wiggins.
I think it's gonna be like, hey, you get a shot or a guy like Jaquez who had kind of a down year last year, but just a solid role player, and then you get a 20th pick and then salary filler, whether that's Rozier's deal or Duncan Robinson. That's kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, speculating obviously with just what rumors were thrown out there, but it's I'm curious even who has the upper hand within that situation as well. Is it Miami really wanting DeMar? Is it the Kings wanting to move on from DeMar because they're looking at some other free agents that we've talked about in the past? Like, is it going to be something random when it comes to like Russell Westbrook, or is it going to be who else was there in there that it was like reported? I forget at this moment in time, but I feel like there's just been so many of these different names that we just keep hearing, and it's like I don't know what the Kings are trying to do, but it would be nice to also have a pick in this draft.
Yeah, and I think with DeMar in Sacramento, I mean, one, I think he wants to win, and last year was a big time disappointment in Sacramento. But if you are trying to compete in the West, I think you need like athleticism. I think the Kings need to kind of change their approach. And you looked at the Kings roster last year and you're like, wow, you've got 3 negative defenders out there with Sabonis, DeRozan, and Levine.
Yeah.
That's tough to win on a regular basis.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
I think from an offensive standpoint, DeRozan, very efficient, can get buckets. But I think Sacramento could look at getting Keegan Murray more of a role on the offensive end. And just getting rid of DeMar could help that.
Yeah. And I mean, you just talked about those negative defenders, 3 of them on the floor at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's not even like their identity is to push the ball and be fast on the offensive end, right? Which is another, which
They
is
didn't really have an identity. That was part of the problem.
Right. But is also a style that you're seeing that has been so effective in today's NBA, if that's what you need to have, because them in the half court set also trying to get teams there, it just never felt like they could find that identity, find that flow. And so if you kind of break that up a little bit and just like try some new things of what you've seen from these other teams in the Western Conference or just even around the league that have been successful, especially when you don't have all the best players in the world. What can you do with your Maj Podge of players? You can be good at one thing. You can be good with a relentless effort on the defensive end, or maybe it's not that. And maybe it's just like you run the shit out of the floor and you run the basketball and you run on teams and teams can't keep up. Like, what is it going to be? The Kings are probably going to have to take on that direction, that identity of one of those things, because they're not going to have like the best player or players in the league on their roster.
Yeah, they need to be younger, more athletic, deeper, and have an offense that's like predicated on moving the ball. Like that's play with an identity. And I think they lack that. And they're going to have to make some tweaks to get to that point. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Oh my goodness. So you got game 7 tonight. And then you got the draft coming up on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Free agency right around the corner. It's going to get crazy. And we're going to have it covered on this channel, of course, and on our podcast feed. Anything that breaks, we will have content up talking about the moves, rumors. You know what we do. Let us know how you're feeling about this trade. Kevin Durant going to the Houston Rockets. Does it propel them into a Western Conference contender? How do you feel about the Phoenix Suns? What's next for them? And what do you think about the prospect of the Kings trading DeMar DeRozan to Miami? Let us know in the comments or email us deuceandmo@gmail.com. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe.
Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. The podcast